Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, and I am joining you today from the gorgeous Virginia Mason Athletics Center as the Seahawks prepare to start practice number 2 of the 2025 training camp. Yesterday was the kickoff. You saw all sorts of fans here up on the berm. You saw the energy. They raised the 12-man flag with Warren Moon. It's a great day, very warm. Today, it's going to be a little bit different. Today, the berm is closed. I do not believe this practice is open to the public. There will be some fans here, some VIP, some friends and family, that kind of thing, and obviously media. So really curious what we will see today, what happens in a non-public practice today, see if there's anything different. I do not expect that they will be in pads, but we will see that hopefully pretty soon. And I will say, today, a little bit of a wind coming off the lake. So we're going to get a chance to, see the quarterbacks throw in the elements as much as wind does count as an element. And looking forward to kind of seeing how that affects the ball flight, how it affects the tracking of the ball for punt returners and all sorts of other things. Yes, I am a freak that way. I focus on all sorts of odd things, but that's why I do this show 365 days a year, or close to it. So great to have you. If you haven't already liked, subscribed, and clicked the bell to get notified when we go live here, now's a really good time to do it. People give away free memberships on this channel all the time. Best chance to get one of those is to be someone who's liking, subscribing, and commenting on the show as often as possible. It's going to be a fun episode today. In just a few minutes, I'll be joined by AJ Barner. And I got to say, I'm excited to talk to AJ for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is that the last time I talked to AJ Barner, everyone was like, my God, how short are you, Brian? And like, he's 6'6", so he definitely makes me short. I had a lot of tall friends growing up, so I'm used to it. But he's going to sit with me. He's going to sit with me, and he'll still make me look tiny, but it'll be a little less stark than when we stand next to each other. So my fragile ego will be a little bit less bruised after this interview. But I'm really looking forward to talking to AJ Barner. I think he is a guy that certainly has a huge opportunity sitting in front of him now that Noah Fant's moved on. Got a lot of things to talk about. So looking forward to talking to him. Also, I mentioned this yesterday that one of my initial impressions about this offense, and it is initial, I always couch these things as this is super early. Pads haven't come on, preseason games haven't happened. All this stuff is early. But I have impressions, so I'm going to follow up on them. I really question where the explosive plays are going to come from this offense. And I think I'll double check my math here, but I believe that the majority of explosive passes from this offense aren't on the team anymore. In fact, 53% of the Seahawks explosive passes that were caught by players last year, the players who caught those passes, Noah Fant, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they aren't here anymore. So that's a big void that needs to be filled. And I'm curious about just how important is it, how critical is it that they find explosive passes in this offense? So I've done a little bit of research and some number crunching. I also have kind of already gotten to the next stage of that research, and I'll share a little bit about that because I think that there's a little bit of a choice. It's not a one or the other. It certainly is not. But I think if you look at offenses, you can be an efficient offense or you could be an explosive offense. Ideally, you're both. But a good measure of efficiency is like, how many yards are you gaining on first down? How good are you on first down? And how ahead of the sticks are you along the way? This is where something like success rate comes in for a lot of measurements. And so I've actually gone through and done some geeky stuff. I've looked at the correlation between the teams last year that had the most explosive plays overall and the top 10 scoring offenses, or the top 32 really, but I looked at all the offenses. I also did the same thing for average yards on first down and the top scoring offenses. And I've got some information for you about which it correlates more with having a top 10 offense. So I'll share some of that data, some of that research. And for me, like, if you don't know already, if watching this show, this is always a journey for me. Like, I just love the game. I love all the intricacies of it. I love the fact that there's a million different ways to build a winning team. There's a million different ways to lose a game, to win a game. There's all sorts of players and rosters and coaches that can succeed or fail. And so it's kind of this endless process of, okay, this is the Seahawks this year. This is what their strengths are. Here's what might be some weaknesses. What do you do with that? How good can that group be? And as of right now, one of my biggest questions is around the explosive capabilities of the passing game in particular. And then relative to that, also where the running game is going to fit in. Ken Walker yesterday had a great first day in training camp. You couldn't help but notice how explosive he is, to overuse that term again. So we'll see. We will see how the running game complements the passing game in terms of creating some of those explosive plays this year. I'll share some data about where the running game was last year in creating these explosive moments. And we'll go through that after we get a chance to talk to AJ Barner, who'll probably be here in a few minutes. These guys, they're finishing meetings. They're trying to grab some lunch before practice. So you never know exactly when these guys are going to show up. But really looking forward to talking to him in what is a pretty critical year 2 for him. A little bit of news, I think that's at least worth mentioning. The Seahawks are a team that I think are still searching for their next nose tackle, like the guy that's going to be here for a few years. They've got guys on this roster, and Brandon Peely and Quinton Bohanna. They signed Justin Rogers. All bigger guys that can potentially play that spot. Obviously, they have Jonathan Hankins, but he has started camp on the NFI list, the non-football injury list, with a bit of a back issue, according to Mike McDonald. As I said yesterday, I would not be surprised at all if that's a little bit of a wink. Hank, Big Hank, we don't need you practicing. You could just chill and enjoy a little bit more of your summer. And when and if we're in need of you, we'll bring you in. But in that regard, Keandre Coburn, who was a draft pick back in 2023, a 6th-round pick, actually bounced around 3 different teams as a rookie. I think he was with the Broncos and then the Chiefs and ended up with the Titans, played with the Titans the last couple of years. He was let go this morning from Tennessee, and that was a surprise. Most people had him making their 53-man roster. This is a 340-pound nose tackle who, has not really made a big name for himself. He did have a decent first year with the Titans, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks take a look at him. He's played with Byron Murphy back at Texas, but there are some warning signs for sure when you bounce around 3 teams as a rookie and then get released before camp really even gets started, as a very young player. But I do think that there's a chance that we could see Keandre Coburn at least coming in for a visit, and the Seahawks seeing what he has to offer, if he has something to offer. As far as the schedule for today, obviously we're doing HB mornings here. This is going to kind of be probably what I do along the way. I might do some early morning shows or multiple shows, but I think I'm going to likely be combining a lot of my player interviews with my morning show. This is when the players are available each day. I've got all my stuff down here at the VMAC, so we'll kind of play it by ear. But after that, I'll do a post-practice report. I'll either do that here at the VMAC or I'll bike home and do it a little bit later. There's Big Leonard Williams coming out to do his media availability, and that's probably a good sign. We're going to get some other guys coming out soon. So anyway, I'll do a post-practice report just like I did yesterday. And then tonight at 6:00, we will do a real Hawk Talk. Evan Hill and hopefully Nathan Ernst. Jeff Simmons was scheduled to be on, but has some work stuff come up. So we will see Jeff another day, but hoping that Nathan Ernst, and if not Nathan, we'll get somebody else. So Real Hawk Talk tonight at 6:00. Make sure you're around for that. We'll have a fun time catching up with the guys there. You know, one of the things that is going to be interesting for this version of the Seahawks is there's really not a lot of question marks as far as what they want to do, how the coaching staff's going to fit together, what the identity is that they want. I think there's a lot of familiarity. Even though Clint Kubiak is new, that coaching staff knows each other. I think they've blended in quickly, and the team, the players don't have to guess at what those guys want to do or how that's going to function in the NFL. They've got a lot of stuff that they can look at to see how that's going to function. They can look at past film. They can see players. We're going to talk about that with AJ Barner here in just a few moments. He can look at tape of players that have run the exact same play, the exact same route in this offense, across the league. And that's a difference compared to what they had last year. And so it really puts a lot of things in focus for, first of all, talent. Talent tends to come to the forefront when, you're not kind of figuring things out. You're just out there playing and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So you find out if you're good. It's also a real focus on coaching and on strategy and on play calling. And one thing that I just don't know that much about with Clint Kubiak yet is what kind of play caller is he? Like, how good is he going to be at adjusting if the defense comes out with a plan that initially takes away some of what they do? He's going to be in a division with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan that know the offense he's running as well or likely better than he does. So what's his adjustment going to be when they take away your favorite play or the bread and butter play? And I think one of the things that is going to be key is, can they run that play anyway? Can they be physical enough to run that play either way? That's, I think, a question that a guy like AJ Barner can help really answer. I think the 2 tight end sets are going to be a big part of this. I think that's a big part of why Noah Fant is not on the team, because AJ Barner and guys like Eric Saubert and, maybe Nick Callerup, whoever it will be, you can kind of line up and just say, we're going to run you down. We're going to run over you. And I think that's something this team's going to have to do. And I'm going to be really curious to see if that's kind of a, I wouldn't say a cure-all, but, think back to the 2005 Seahawks for those that are old enough to remember them. A lot of teams knew exactly what they were going to do. They just couldn't stop them from doing it. So that's, I think, the kind of team you want this Seahawks team to be, where even in that regard, it's less about how good of a play caller you are. It's more about, whether or not you've instilled the right identity with the right players and the right amount of confidence and the right talent level to be able to win independent of what defensive scheme a team comes out against you with. So I think that's going to be absolutely crucial for this team this year. And certainly I think the tight ends, that's going to be one of the biggest storylines of this offense overall. Is what is, like, the Seahawks have not had a history of productive tight ends. The fact that, Jimmy Graham holds all sorts of records for tight ends for the Seahawks franchise after being here a few years, I don't think it's not a great sign. Not that Jimmy Graham didn't have a lot of productivity, but it hasn't been a position that's really been central to this team, dating back all the way to Tula Mealy and Jeremy Stevens and all the guys, Zach Miller. Like, there's been players that have had impact, but I think in this offense, the way Clint Kubiak runs this offense, tight ends could be the second leading receiver on this team. Tight ends could be up there in touchdowns. Tight ends are going to be on the field when it's a running play, a passing play. They're a big part of disguising what the implications are, what the intent is of that team, of the offense there. So certainly really curious to see how that group kind of comes together. And as I said, we'll be talking to AJ Barner here in a little bit. it's always fun and a little risky to start the show prior to when your guest arrives. And I could go into the explosive stuff, but I really don't want to interrupt it when AJ gets here. So we'll leave that for a little later. What I can do while we're waiting is if folks have any questions that they are curious about, I could take some questions in chat right now, do a little Q&A. Why not at this point? So feel free to drop questions into chat. I will say there's a little other bit of news today that I think is of note. Justin Fields, the quarterback for the New York Jets, man, a snake-bitten franchise, the New York Jets, was carted off the field in training camp with what initially is being reported as a dislocated toe, I believe, or a separated toe. Don't know how serious that is for a guy who a lot of his skill and value is in his running. It's probably more serious than the average quarterback. And again, that brings into focus the question I've raised the last week or so, which is Drew Lock, while he is here and I think loved by his teammates and by the staff and has been playing really well, he may be valuable enough as a backup quarterback for some other teams that he could get moved. He could get moved before the season starts. We'll just have to see what happens. Not saying he's going to the Jets, but it is just an example of, there's going to be teams that are thin at certain positions. Quarterback's a pretty dang important one. The Seahawks do have 3 quarterbacks that they intend, I think, to keep on this roster. That puts them in a very different position than they've been in previous years, and a little bit in a situation where they could look to make a move if they choose to and maybe get some value in return. All right. So looking through chat, let's see. Checking out to see what I see some people asking, what do you think our record will be? I'm not sure what the record's going to be at this point. I don't think now's the time to even be really thinking about records. I think it's way too early for that. I mean, honestly, health has so much to do with that. And even training camp and preseason games is a little bit of a gauntlet just to make sure that you make it through. So we'll hold off on record predictions until a little bit later. And then someone's advocating that the Anthony Bradford moves to nose tackle. I do not believe that's something that's going to happen. So wouldn't worry too much about that. I know they're just joking. Got a question here from David about JJ Watt's latest tweet. So JJ Watt this morning tweeted about, people taking stats in training camp seriously. And I think that's dead right. He was basically saying, like, look, there can be situations where someone's in the teams are on 3rd down blitz drill and the defense has a significant advantage. That's not necessarily really indicative of, like, statistically something you want to track. I mean, I don't think it has no meaning. I think it's silly to actually use it as a deciding factor, let's say. I remember back in 2012 when Russell Wilson was drafted, and I was here every day for training camp and tracking that 3 quarterback battle with Tavares Jackson and Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson. And I tracked their snaps every day. I tracked, how they did in the red zone. I tracked their completions. That was pretty valuable, honestly. And it was indicative. Like, you saw shifts in what I don't think it's indicative of whether some player is better than another. I do think it gives you an idea, especially the snap counts, how coaches see. And so if you see snap count starting to change and shift day to day at certain positions, that's usually a pretty good sign that they're seeing something and they're reviewing film and they're going back and having their meetings and then coming out and saying, nope, we got to give this guy more reps. He's earning it. So I don't think it's nothing. I do think that people are taking it a little far. And the fact that someone is 10 for 15 and someone else is 7 for 12, like, I don't think you're going to learn much about that, watching training camp. That's not where my mind goes, at least. And then let's see. Who will start, Barber or Elijah? I don't know who you're talking about. So we got a question here about Nicky Manwari. How did he look yesterday? Did you notice him? Nothing stood out to me with Nick. One of the things I will say that was interesting with Nick to me was watching punt coverage and punt gunner drills where you're talking about guys trying to run down the field and beat 2 blockers. They had Nicky Manwari in that drill, and the kind of athlete he is, he could be a mean special teams player. And I think people forget that you got guys like Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin. There's a long list of players, Cam Chancellor, who made their names as special teams players. And I think Nicky Manwari is a guy that could be part of that. So we'll talk more about that. Thanks for the question. And as we do, we've got the big guy here, AJ Barner. He's going to join us here. Good to see you, dude. Joining the show.
What's up?
How you doing, dude?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I was telling everybody that I was happy we're going to be able to sit down, because last year when I interviewed you, everyone comments about how short I am, and you were killing me, dude. 6'6". I got burned for that, so I appreciate you coming over here.
No worries.
How you doing in year 2, man? It's a big adjustment coming to the NFL for your first year, and now you got that under your belt.
Yeah, know what to expect a little bit. Kind of just want to take the year 2 jump for myself, and then really just a leadership role in the tight end room. We got like Saubert in there, who's been in the league for a long time. But outside of that, it's a pretty young room. So I kind of have to remind myself too, I'm learning as well, and not to put too much pressure on myself. So, but it's been great.
Well, it's funny you say not put too much pressure on yourself. How do you kind of approach, like, this is a career that a fraction of the population ever gets to have, and it doesn't necessarily always last that long. Some people are like, they come in the league and they're like, I'm the best. Like, I'm going to be the best that ever played this position. And that's their mentality. Yeah. Others, they take it a day at a time. How do you approach it?
I think that, like, you want to have the confidence and the approach that, I want to be very, very good. And then just remind yourself that it's a process, and there's, especially at my position, there's so much that they're going to ask myself and other tight ends to do, that it takes time to learn all of it, to be consistent at it, and to know what techniques to use when. So it's definitely a process and something that I'm committed to, becoming one of the best at.
You talked about your tight end room being young. It also seems like it's got some wide variety of characters in there. You got Brady Russell, you got obviously Saubert and so forth. What's it like in there? What's that group like?
It's great. I mean, that's what you need out of the tight end room. You get a wide variety of everyone. You can listen to some country music, you get some rap going. You got to be able to mix in with the receivers and the O-line. So it's good. Having Brady back in there is definitely a lot of fun, because he's always bringing energy. And just like you said, being that it's a young room, we're all kind of in this together and supporting each other and learning. And our coach Mack, he does a great job of letting us be us, coaching us, but letting us have fun too. So it's a really positive environment.
I noticed during OTAs and minicamp, tight ends seem to huddle up during stretching. Where did that start? And what's that about?
That's Eric Saubert brought that. He just every day he wants the rookies to give us a quote. And so every rookie will rotate and give us a quote, and we'll give them a score on it, whether we like it or we don't like it. And just something to get the guys going, put the rookies on the spot, a little bit of like hazing, I guess you could say. But, just something to add a little spice to practice.
All right. Is there a quote that's good enough that you remember it?
Not really.
No,
but I appreciate, like, if you go up there and, like, bring some juice, bring some effort. Like, I'm more into, like, how the presentation of it goes. Like, don't go up there and, like, be timid and, like go up there and yes, give me something that I want to hear, but give me some juice, give me a little performance with it.
Are they going for like the philosophical Zen like quotes, or are they going for like the motivational let's kick some ass?
Both.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
A whole variety of all of it. So yeah.
Well, tight end seems like it's going to be a huge part of this offense.
For sure.
The amount of there's a lot of 11 personnel last year, a lot of 3 receiver sets. This, Clint Kubiak runs a lot of 22, a lot of 12, and so you're gonna have a couple tight ends out there a lot of time. You guys feel that kind of responsibility and opportunity in front of you to like make a huge impact on this offense?
No doubt. I feel it. I'm sure the other tight ends feel it as well. I mean, we know that, we're going to be asked to do a lot, whether it's 11, 12, 13, whatever the case may be. And I think, like you kind of mentioned, the characters that we have in the room, all of us have a different role. And I think, we can all play into that and feed off of each other. And we know that, like, it's kind of a clean slate on offense too. Like last year, we didn't really have, or we had some different leaders, guys that had been here, but like now we kind of take it as the tight end room. Like, we need to be a spark plug for the offense. We need to, be a tone setter. Kind of like, I guess you could say, like Spoon on defense.
Mm-hmm.
The effort that Spoon plays with, the juice that he plays with. That's kind of what I envision our tight end doing the same. And being that we have the bodies that can do different roles and do different things, like there's no reason why we shouldn't go out there and give 110% effort.
When you came out of Michigan last year, you were labeled for whatever reason as a blocking tight end. Do you see yourself as a blocking tight end, or do you see yourself as more than that?
I see myself as an all-around tight end, and that's really what I pride myself in is I love the block and I love being physical, and I think you see that when I get the ball too. Like I'm never looking to run around people. Like when I get the ball, I'm on defense now. Like I'm tackling you with the football, but not going down. But so I think both. Like I really want to be all around, and I think the more you can do, the better, especially at the position. They can't key on, if you're in there and you're going out for passes or, what I'm saying, then if this guy's in there, he's only in there for pass pro and run blocking, where if this guy's in here, they're throwing the ball. So that's really huge for me. And I think I continue to take strides in both those directions,
Did you know that, you had 4 touchdowns last year? That's more than in any season you had in college.
Yeah.
So you got the pros. You already set a personal record.
Yeah.
And it's the second most by a rookie tight end in Seahawks franchise history. Yeah. Is that what you expected? Were you excited to see that kind of come about?
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. Got to just build off of it now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, coming in last year is really, I kind of was limited in OTAs. I had like a hamstring injury, and my mindset was just like, let me just take every opportunity and run with it. And those things happen. I think in the NFL too, these quarterbacks are paid to go through their progression, see the whole field, and like if you have a route, like you have a chance to get the ball. Where in college, it's like if you're not the number 1 look or the number 2 look, like you're probably not going to get it. Where in the NFL, they're covering that number 1, the quarterback's starting on this side and going all the way back, so you can get the ball on any route, and that's kind of what happened.
You also, if I were to tell you, you caught 75% of your contested catches. Is that what you expect?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but your new quarterback, Sam Darnold, he will put it into tight spaces. He'll ask his tight ends to make some really tough catches.
Yeah.
Are you ready to be a guy that's going to be catching that and maybe delivering some of the hit? Of
course. Yeah. Just give me the opportunity, and I'm gonna come down with it. And I think that's just all you can ask for is just get open, and the ball's up there. Just know it's yours and go take it.
So a couple other guys in that tight end room, Elijah Arroyo, Nick Caller, up two of the newer names in there. Obviously Eric Saubert as well. Tell folks about those guys, what you've noticed about them.
Yeah. They've all done a really good job, first of all, of coming in, knowing their playbook and all that. And I think really easy mover. I'm talking to Elijah here. Very easy, smooth, fluent athlete, good kid, comes in, does his job, catches the ball, and is very puts his best foot forward in the run game too. Like he's not going to shy away from that. And I think the sky's the limit for him. And I think what me and E have kind of talked to us like, yo, like I got your back, you got mine. Like let's go do this thing together. And I'm here for you all the way. And then when it comes to Nick and Marshall, the 2 other rookies we got, Nick, being more in that Y world.
Mhm.
He's kind of done a lot of the inline blocking stuff in college, and his footwork looks really good. We were just watching upstairs, and I think once
He's a big guy.
yeah, he is, no doubt. Minnesota kid, so
Yeah.
you know he's got some oomph to him.
Yeah.
And then Marshall too, kind of one of those in between guys that can play Y and F. So we got a good little cast of young guys, and I think when the pads come on, that'll really be able to show, because it's one thing to do it now, and then it's another when the pads come on. But they've been all doing a really good job, and whatever I can do to help them, I'm all for it.
So obviously, a tight end is involved in everything, right? Run game, pass game, blocking, like everything.
Yeah.
On the blocking side of things, penalties are tough in the NFL. I'm wondering if that's something that you picked up in your first year that you're looking at, and what they call versus what they called in college, and you're adjusting to that.
Really just knowing like when to let go. Like once the guy gets outside your frame, gotta let him go, especially on different run plays. Like the scheme duo, for example. Duo can bounce. So once the running back makes his choice, I kind of have to let him go, and that's on the back to make me right. And it's kind of funny. Last year I came out here and I was wearing green gloves, and Coach Grubb at the time was like, "Yeah, like we're not wearing those," because they could just see, you know what I'm saying, where your hands are at.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think just knowing when to let go and all that is a big thing.
Speaking of green, it's a little bit different green, but one of the backs you're blocking for Michigan State.
Yeah.
So you and K9 had any conversations about time back? I mean, I don't know if you were playing when he was there, right?
Yeah, I was, but I was on Indiana at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm a Big Ten guy, I guess, because I was at Indiana, Michigan, but obviously Michigan to the core. But we're Seahawks now. We wear the same colors, so maybe a little banter back and forth when it comes to that week. But
that guy's a special runner.
For sure.
What's it like to have him behind you?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like he's just a guy that's a home run hitter. Like you never know when he can take it all the way. And I think with this scheme too, it's going to be huge for him and really show his skill set. And Charbonnet and the rest of the guys too, they're really going to do a great job. And I think us tight ends on the edge, like we're the tip of the spear and going to make that go. So.
All right, last question for AJ Barner here, your second-year tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. I know you're a big music fan. Did you hit any festivals, any concerts that you just loved during this offseason?
I hit a Chris Stapleton concert.
Oh, all right.
I hit a jazz club. I hit some live music. I started picking up guitar, but then the playbook picked up and that went away. But yeah, all of that for sure. And I'll definitely be on the aux a little bit in the weight room too. Make sure we get some variety in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time,
sir.
AJ. Good luck on this season, and we'll talk again.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, that's AJ Barner of your Seattle Seahawks. A huge part of what's going to be a tight end oriented offense for the Seahawks this season. The guy's huge. He's added weight, he's added muscle, he is a professional, he's taken this very seriously, and he's one of the guys I'm most optimistic about what his second season can look like and the kind of leap forward he can have. This is someone who I think George Kittle is obviously the best tight end in the NFL, and you don't want to put something on someone's shoulders, but let's just say the style of player that George Kittle is the style of player I believe AJ Barner can be. He's someone who is physical, who can run, who can break tackles, who can make the catch, but also loves making a block. And so I think that combination of skills, there hasn't been a lot of guys for the Seahawks that fit that. I think Zach Miller, maybe that's a more modest comparison, or at least kind of model. I think Zach Miller, for me, is one of the best tight ends the Seahawks have had. He was a huge part of that Super Bowl team. He was somebody who absolutely cleared the path. I mean, some of the wham blocks he ran for Marshawn Lynch, like I can think of one in what at the time was the Washington Redskins playoff game in 2012. He just absolutely destroyed people, and he also made great catches. He was just, I mean, if I could have a Zach Miller on my team every single year, I'd sign up. Now, he probably didn't earn the full contract that he signed because he didn't put up big receiving numbers, But I think AJ Barner absolutely can be a Zach Miller-like tight end. I think he's got maybe more than that in him, and that would be a massive return on what was a mid-round draft pick. So excited to see how his role kind of evolves. And he's right. When he caught the ball last year, he was running through people's faces. So I think that kind of attitude is something that this team really, really needs. All right, so let me switch gears. We're going to talk a little bit about explosive plays and how important they are or are not. If you haven't already, click like and subscribe. Now's a good time to do it. Click the bell to get notified. Go over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Get ad-free versions of the audio for this show each and every day, as well as access to the Discord channel. I will tell you, folks, I check the Discord channel as much as I check Twitter at this point. There's great conversation in there. It's kind of a curated Twitter because people are posting. We've got a channel for Seahawks news. We've got a channel for NFC West news. We've got NFL news. If you're a Mariners fan, there's Mariners channel. There's all this stuff in there. Great group of people. It's very friendly, so you don't have to deal with all the other crap, and there's no ads, and you can just talk to people, and there's a lot of great stuff. I'm in there all the time, so it's a chance for us to interact a little bit more. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, and get access there. There are also 2 spots left in the Ring of Honor. If you want to be someone who gets to the most elite status of this community in terms of the biggest support you can provide, Ring of Honor does that. And you'll get a chance to come to the season opening steak dinner at Daniel's Broiler with myself, Evan Hill, a number of other folks. I think Rob Staten's going to end up being there as well. It's going to be a fun evening. And all you got to do is join over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. There's only 2 spots left in the Ring of Honor. Why not make you one of those people? All right, so explosive plays. Again, the general idea here is that I have questions about how explosive the Seahawks are going to be. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you look at the Seahawks from last year and you look at their explosive plays, they had we're going to define explosive in this case as 15 yards or greater. And we're going to use that for run or pass. So Pete Carroll had his 16-plus yard was an explosive play for reception, 12-plus yard was explosive play for a run. Mike McDonald, he's been clear that he doesn't even really define explosive play by yardage. He thinks it changes depending on all sorts of other factors. So I'm just going to use 15 yards as an explosive play for both. And last year, the Seahawks had 105 receptions of 15 yards or more. And of those 105, Jackson Smith and Jigba had the most. So that's good news. He had 33, essentially a third of the explosive passes, or explosive catches. Then you had 25 from DK Metcalf, you had 18 from Tyler Lockett, and you had 11 from Noah Fant. You also had, one from LaVisca, one from Pharaoh Brown. So you had a couple other people that aren't here. So those have all exited the building. And the question is, who's going to take over those kinds of plays? It's also worth noting that Seahawks had 19 explosive runs of 15 yards or more. And Kenneth Walker and Geno Smith were tied with the lead with 6. Zach Charbonnet had 5. So Kenny McIntosh, by the way, had 2 in very limited reps. So interesting that Kenny McIntosh was, from a percentage of snap opportunity, pretty explosive when he got a chance to carry the ball. So that's kind of the set, which is a lot of explosive passes. And in fact, if you look at the Seahawks in that regard, they finished, I'm going to double check this, make sure I've got it right. They finished, I believe, 4th in the NFL last year. They finished 9th. They finished 9th in the NFL last year, at least according to this, with explosive passes. They were tied for 6th. Okay. With 121. So That's at least what this. It's a different number than I'm seeing in another place, but we'll stick with what StatHead and the guys at Pro Football Reference have used. So they were one of the more explosive offenses in the NFL last season. All right. And as I said, a lot of those explosive plays have left. Well, there's a stat that Warren Sharp tweeted out a few days ago, and it was about how important explosives are in any given drive. So in the last 5 years, the last 5 seasons, if a drive has 0 plays of 15 plus yards, you have a 15% chance of scoring, a 6% touchdown rate, and you average less than a point per drive, 0.7. If the drive has just one play of 15 yards or more, that 15% scoring rate goes up to 60%. You have from a 6% TD rate to 34% touchdown rate, and from 0.7 points per drive to 3.1. So explosive plays are pretty darn important to an offense, and to having a successful drive, it's very hard to kind of matriculate the ball down the field. So what I did is I wanted to go through and look at, okay, let's look at the offenses last year, the top scoring offenses. How many of them were among the most explosive in the NFL? The top 10 offenses in the last year were the Lions, the Bills, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Commanders, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Broncos. And of those 10 teams, 6 of them ranked among the top 10 in explosive plays. So pretty good correlation there in terms of someone being a team being a explosive offense and also being a high scoring offense. Similarly, if you look at the bottom, let's look at the bottom. Sure, we'll do the bottom 10. Same thing, offenses in terms of scoring last year. And it always shocks me to see the Rams down here, by the way. They're not quite bottom 10, but they were pretty dang low in scoring last year for a team that everyone thinks is offensively a juggernaut. So anyway, bottom 10 offenses last year. Of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of the 10 were also bottom 10 in explosive plays. So 6 out of 10 of the top 10 offenses in explosive plays were also top 10 in scoring. 8 of the 10 that were bottom in explosive plays were bottom 10 in scoring. So pretty strong correlation. If you do a full look, I'll share my screen. I don't know if you guys are going to want to see this or not, but I'm going to show you anyway, because why not? We got time before practice starts. A little bit of time, not a lot. So I will show you this and put it up on screen for you. Let me put it up here so you guys can see this. So this is charting explosive plays. That's on the vertical axis, and the rank. So where you were ranked 1 through 32 in explosive plays. And then the horizontal axis here is points per game rank. And what I did is look at the correlation. I did R squared. I'm not going to get too much more geeky than that. And what you get there is a 0.44 R squared, which is a pretty high correlation relatively. 1 would be a perfect correlation. So 0.44 is pretty high. But what I wanted to kind of do is compare and contrast this with something else that I think is there's a different way of being a productive offense, because if you look at this, the 2005 Seahawks were a pretty damn good offense. They also were not very explosive. So I went back and I looked at the 2005 Seahawks, and I'm going to pull up their numbers here, but this was a Super Bowl team, and you're going to be surprised by how many explosive plays they had. Remember, the Seahawks had about 120 of 15 yards or more, and most of those were passes. The 2005 squad under Mike Holmgren with an MVP caliber, MVP running back and Sean Alexander and a great offensive line and Matt Hasselbeck and all those things, they only had 79 explosive passes on offense. They had 35 rushes. So they were much more productive. And you might remember him. Joe Jurevicius was their top explosive receiver. He had 16. Bobby Ingram had 15. Darrell Jackson had 13. Jeremy Stevens had 13. So you kind of spread it around. I think that's what this Seahawks offense could look like. Not that explosive, maybe a wider variety of who's catching those. Maybe you're going to have Cooper Kupp and JSN and AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo all showing up on that list. Maybe Torrey Horton starts to show up on that list. But the point is, you didn't have to be a super explosive offense. And if I look at where that Seahawks team ranked in terms of explosive plays, I think we're going to find that it was not particularly high. But if you look at another thing that I believe is a way to be a very dangerous offense, and by the way, I'm going to talk to Mike McDonald about this later, is just be really good on first down. That's not about being explosive. That's about getting 5 or 6 yards on first down consistently. And I looked at teams that were good on first down last year. For what it's worth, this shouldn't be a surprise. The Seahawks were not one of them. So if I'm going to get this sorted the right way, the Seahawks ranked 20th in the NFL. They averaged 5 yards per play on first down. The top teams in the NFL on first down were Baltimore, Detroit, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Cincinnati. They were averaging 6 yards or more on first down. Well, to get back to what I said before about explosive, that Seahawks offense in 2005, they averaged 7 yards per play on first down. 7 yards. That's insane. They essentially were looking at second and short almost all the time. If you're looking at second and short, you don't need to be that explosive. You just need to keep pushing it down. And if you remember that team, what was really defining about them is once they started moving the sticks, people really had trouble stopping them. Like it just was like a play action bootleg, rollout for 8 or 9 yards, and then another run to Sean Alexander behind Hutch and Walter Jones, and then maybe another run, and then maybe another play action. And they just kind of alternated these body blows between, relatively short to intermediate passes and running plays. And a lot of the shape of that offense, I think, is very similar to what Clint Kubiak likes to run. And I think that's what, in its ideal state, you'd get from this team, which is a pretty dominant run game that can be explosive at times, but that's very effective on first downs. And so I went back, and the other thing I was checking out was the correlation between being a great first down offense and being a top scoring offense. And one of the things I found, you heard what I was saying about explosive plays and that. Well, of the top 10 scoring offenses, 5 of them were also among the top 10 in average yards on first down. And if you go to actual correlation, which I'll show you here just now, let me put this up for you guys to see. This is looking at the same view as the explosive plays, but this is looking at first downs on the vertical axis and the rank there versus points per game. And interestingly, the correlation, the R-squared's higher here. It's 0.53 compared to, what was it, 0.44? So there's a higher correlation between, at least last year, being a top team in yards gained on first down and being a top scoring offense than there is being a top team in the NFL in explosive plays and being a top scoring offense. Now, they're both highly correlated, so it's not like, it's bad to be one or it's bad to be another. But part of what I was curious about in doing this research was, is it okay if this team is not that explosive? Is it okay if they're just kind of, taking what the defense gives, some checkdowns to running backs, taking 5-6 yards when they're available, occasionally being able to bust one deep, but not having that be a core part of the offense? That's what I was kind of curious about. And at least from this data, the answer is like, yeah, that's fine. But again, it puts a lot of focus, a lot of pressure on that running game. I think that's got to be more explosive than it's been. And it's got to be a very successful aspect of the way this offense operates. All right, I'm seeing Abe Lucas making his way onto the field. He was the first one of the positional players to come out. Isis Waxter was second. I see John Rice Plumlee making his way, signing a couple autographs. That's probably a good sign for me to wrap this one up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview with AJ Barner. I will be back with you later for a post-practice report, as well as a real Hawk Talk. So a triple pod Thursday for you all on the second day of Seahawks training camp. If you haven't already, make sure you give the show a like and subscribe. Also, go over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Join up there. Become a Ring of Honor member. Last 2 spots are available. We'd love to have you out at dinner. Or just join as a Patreon member and get access to the Discord and hang out there. So all that's good. I will see you all very soon. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I see that there are some super chats. I do not want to forget about those. Go Hawks says, I joined the live stream late, but is there any mention of Torrey Horton lately? I did talk about Torrey Horton yesterday in my post-practice report. You can check that out. Torrey Horton's fine, looked good, nothing crazy one way or another. The most important thing right now is just that he's out there. So that was good to see. Danny McCormick says, who's the fastest receiver on the team? Is Olu starting? Fastest receiver most likely is MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But curious to see Torrey Horton over time to see if, from a play speed perspective, if he shows up in that regard. But those would be the two that I would call out. Olu is, he has been the starter, and I think that continues to be the expectation. But there is a competition with Jalen Sundell. And last one, Will Fries, he's back. Says, how long do you think they're going to keep mixing and matching and testing out permutations of the offensive line? Where would you draw the line? So we asked Mike McDonald about that before this break, and he said it was going to be a couple of weeks before they locked it down. Yesterday, he was asked again, and he said, really by next week, we could start to see that offensive line settle. So really interested to see. That's certainly an area I'll be focused on today and over the next few practices. All right, folks. Take care. Appreciate you. I will be back with you soon. Until then, have a great rest of your Wednesday. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings.